in, obviously.
Yep, that's
Take
perfect.
it away.
Okay, so let us know when you let them in.
No, they are all in. You can start now.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you here. I'm Sean Lyons, and I'm the GM for Groov, and I'm hosting this conversation today with John Kirwan, who's going to tell us a little bit about what he's up to and some of the, I guess, the hopeful things that we're seeing around the world, some of the trends we're seeing around the world, and really the place that some of the tools that he has been developing is changing lives for good. So welcome, John. Natalie, would you like to kick off with a karakia to start with?
Happy to. Kia hanai te ako, kia tika, kia pono. Ka whae, ka tutuki, kia eke, panuku, hoie, taikie, which I believe translates to for learning to work, for truth and honesty to prevail, for work to be achieved and achieved well. This is our commitment. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Kia ora. Thanks, Natalie. John, do you want to get straight into it?
Sure, yeah. Ka tangata titi, ka tangata kaka, ka tangi hoki ahau, ti hei Māori ora. O to atua, tēnā koe. Tēnā koto i o tate tēnā mate, haere, haere, haere. Te ka hunga mate, ki te hunga mate, ki te hunga ora, ki te hunga ora. I te kairanga, i te pai tapu, tēnā koto katoa, ko tau mai mātua, ki te tuatoki, te kaupapa o tēnei wā. E hau te tangi te moiho, ki te kōrero o tira, a tika ana, kia mihi atu, kia mihi mai. Kia ora, everyone. Real honour for me to be here with you today, and I just wanted to apologise for last week. I know I was supposed to be here last week with you all, but a really good mate of mine passed, actually, a guy called Wile Lose, who I grew up playing rugby with. He was one of the first males that I actually was able to have a fashion conversation with. There you go. So back in the day when I used to dress up, probably having 3 older sisters, and I loved my fashion after living in Italy at an early age. Willie was one of those guys that carried himself and loved to dress up, and but he passed a few weeks ago, and I had the funeral, and it was a really beautiful funeral, sending him away, but it was also a time for reflection, because at my age, I'm going to more funerals than I'm going to 21sts. So you get to reflect a wee bit. And actually, Willie came to me last night while I was reading my book in bed, which was really nice. And I was just thinking about COVID and about the discussion we're having today, and just all those things that affect and make us reflect, which I think is a real positive thing. I think the hard balance, when you're sort of thinking about reflection and you have sadness in your life, it's, living for every day, but also keeping your goals and keeping some discipline to your life. So those were the things that I was reflecting on last night when Willie was coming to me. But yeah, I guess my Groov story and the reason I'm here today was I felt like I'd failed. I woke up 5 years ago, Sean, and looked at the paper, and our suicide rate was going the wrong way. So, I've been the face of this for the last 15 years, and then 11 years ago, we created, with the government, depression.org.nz, which was an amazing tool. Hundreds of thousands of people would come online and get some basic online help. It was won awards all around the world. But I sort of felt, if there's less stigma, if there is, more awareness, but our suicide rate's still going the wrong way, then we need to look at the problem differently. So I believe in 2 things. I believe in our tamariki. My reference to mental health was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know what I mean? And if you're old enough to remember that movie, and I can laugh about it now, but back then I wouldn't reach out to get help because I thought I was going to get locked up with Jack Nicholson and the chief, the big American Indian guy, right? And that was a real fear. Like I said, I can laugh about it now, but it's a real fear. So I had no education around it until it hit me like a freight train in the head. It was hidden around the dinner table, it was hidden at school, it was hidden in the workplace. Any dialogue around mental health was all really, really negative, and probably in the real ill health area, which I think is an area that we need to continue pouring funds in, because there's some amazing work going into that area. So I sort of decided to do a couple of things. I raised some money and gave the Auckland University a challenge to create a curriculum around mental health for our primary schools, and that's called Mighty. And then the other thing I firmly believe is that the workplace is the community. So all of you that are working today, if you're working remotely, then you'll be at home, but if you're not, you will be going home later. So business places are the community. So I wanted to create a world-class, world-changing tool that can be put into the workplace to deliver preventative mental health, right? So I talk a lot about me, going from wanting to jump out of a window one night, which is what I just call surviving, right through to thriving, which is, I feel that I'm thriving today because I have a really sound daily mental health plan. So that's sort of what I've been doing. And you asked me, Sean, a really interesting question, just before, about how the world is. And I've been very fortunate to get back traveling. So for some personal reasons, my wife's in Italy and looking after her mum who's not well. And so I traveled, I've been traveling to Australia quite a bit, but also to the UK and to Italy. And, post-COVID has been pretty traumatic for everybody. So everyone's suffering from burnout, everyone's suffering from exhaustion, everyone's suffering from a reflection of life. The main questions that people are asking me is, what is burnout? How can we deal with it? How can we retain people? How can we get people back to work? What is the new way to create a culture at work if half my workforce is not coming back? How can I genuinely look after my people? So there's all these questions around the world. And I often, if anyone was online listening before we started this, COVID is something that, personally made me reconsider the way I live. And then it sort of made me understand how I want to move forward. And it's been a very sort of reflective time, then a reorganization of how I want to do things, and then how am I going to recreate that moving forward. And I think all those things a lot of people are struggling with, and add that to world issues like wars and mortgage rates going up. So it's the perfect storm, unfortunately, for mental health.
Hey, John, last week I read an article by a psychiatrist in Black Dog, and he made a comment which kind of grabbed me a little bit when we were reading it in Mental Health Awareness Week, that, aren't we a bit past having mental health awareness campaigns? And so I quickly logged on and read the guy's article, and he talked about the fact that we may all be well more aware of mental health now, but it hasn't fundamentally changed our behaviours. And I guess your programs are about behaviours. So what's your view? Do you think the awareness campaigns have done their dash and we need to look at kind of normalising a behavioural change?
Yeah, well, awareness is I'll say never get rid of awareness, but I have a mental health day every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think the best way I talk about it is, I got pushed off the cliff mentally, and you can look for like one of the dumbest things I did is I looked for the reasons why for about a year instead of just saying it is. One of the greatest things my doctor told me was, JK, it's an illness, not a weakness, right? So the interesting thing about mental illness, it takes away your self-esteem, takes away your self-confidence, takes away enjoyment in life, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty shitty without those three things. But if you've got those three things, you don't think it's an illness, you think it's you, not good enough, can't cope with the pressure, You know, I can't do my job. All these sorts of things that go on in your head eternally. And when you know, Doc Mayhew said to me, JK, it's an illness, not a weakness, I went, oh, okay, I can work on that. And I think, you know, what I learned is what we call at Groov, which is the 6 pillars, but it's a daily mental health plan. And it's a preventative measure on how you keep yourself well with all this stuff that the world throws at us, right? So there's no more work-life balance. No one's jobs are ever finished. Your home life interrupts into your work life. I was at a function the other day, right? And this guy got a text and he went, oh shit, what's up, my man? You know, what's going on? He said, my son just came 3rd in the school swimming competition. And I went, oh, good stuff, bro. Well done. That's congratulations, you know. And he went, no, I wasn't there. And, you know, said, I feel real guilty I wasn't there. And I went, mate, my dad never came to my school ever. And he was a great dad, right? Yeah. So he was an amazing dad. Like, I'd get home and say, Dad, I came third. He'd say, well, why didn't you come first? Let's go swimming. You know what I mean? But so we get all these interruptions in our life now. We have more inputs in one day than our parents and grandparents had in a lifetime, right? So we don't have the mental health tools to actually deal with what the world throws at us. And so the prevention and meta, and the thing that I'm passionate about is I often talk about diet, right? What do we have? What do we do now? Do we just eat the old cow, or do we eat the vegetable garden, or do we eat Julio, Julio, or Palio? I mean, I don't know. There's just so much information going into your brain. So stuff it, I'll have a packet of chips and a glass of wine. You know what I'm saying? But the interesting thing is that you've got all this information around you all your time. But when you think about mental health, right, we don't actually talk about a mental health plan. You know, everyone's talking about diets. Everyone's talking about all this other stuff. I talk about the 80s, you know, anyone who's been around in the 80s, anyone on this call around the 80s, you know, beginning days, we all had a dart, had a fag, you know, a few beers, a few wines, you know, no one really thought too much about it. Then by the end of the 80s, people saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't smoke and maybe you should limit your drinking, and all that information came in. And then I think now, if you want to smoke, that's your life. I don't judge anyone. But you have the information.
Yeah, you do.
We don't have that on mental health, right? And all we hear is the ill health side. So what I really want to promote is actually a real active, preventative mental health, you know, daily plan, and also changing the dialogue around it's really important. That's why we're called ourselves Groov, right? So I asked you all, how's your mental health? You know, everybody go, oh, it's a bit heavy, JK. You know what I'm saying? Woo, get out of my face. But if I said, you know, are you in your groove? People go, oh, well, what do you mean by being in your group? And I go, well, and I've made you guys a PowerPoint, so I'll just put it up, right? So Groov is this, right? Feeling good and functioning well.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of trouble to this, but this is what it is for me, right? It's peace at home. Wife and kids, you know, they're all in their groove. They're good. I'm really optimistic. Is that spelt right? Hope so.
Close.
Yeah. I've got no sharks, right? So I had 3 pretty big sharks, doubt, imposter syndrome, and guilt. They're not around. Can't see them for miles. I enjoy the little things, right? Love a laugh. Loved our little dance. Have a bit of sing in the car. Right? Van Morrison's got no chance with me in the car, man. I would kick his butt.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, right? I'm creative. Right? And that's when I'm in my groove. So if I get to, you know, if I ask all you guys, what's the feeling when you're in your groove? And you go, oh yeah, okay. And you got to work that out, right? But the other really interesting thing for me is when I'm not in my groove, right? And what I do is I do my AAA battery, right? So my battery's low, I'm not feeling that good. And I think these things are really important. I'm just trying to work out my PowerPoint, people. It's a bit complicated.
That's perfect.
Just trying to work out where my finger is, so be patient. You know, awareness, acknowledgement, and then act, right? So it's really interesting because I think sometimes when we're out of our groove, we're aware, but we won't acknowledge it. So the AAA is really important. So I'm aware, then I acknowledge it, right? Okay, I had a fight with Mumsy. That's upset me a wee bit. I need to acknowledge that. And then what am I going to do? The last bit, the act on it, right? And what I normally do is I do a dot, a DAT, and then I use communication, right? So the other important thing for me is, DOT is, you can write this down if you want, do one thing, right? Because life's really busy, even with your mental health, just do one thing. And then once you've done one thing, do that, do another thing, right? Because habitual change takes time. So if you're out of your groove, use your battery, but, get the awareness, acknowledge it, then act on it, right? That'll bring you back into your groove. Understand what your groove is. And then I think to look after your mental health, it's really, really important just to start building habitual change, right? Because that is the hardest thing. And because we've never been taught it, it's hard to fall out of those habits. Easy to fall out of those habits, sorry.
Totally.
Am I talking too much?
No, not from my perspective. Hey, we've got a few questions. You want to do questions at the end or during? How?
No, let's just go for it, man. I'm happy, yeah.
Okay, Jennifer asked about the social determinants of health. And unless we deal with those, we're still going to always end up with mental health issues. Do you think that's a fair call?
I don't know what social determinants are. What are they?
Things like poor housing, low incomes, high costs, a lack of equity.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, when I suffered, one of the hardest things for me is I shouldn't have suffered. So I had everything, great family, middle-class upbringing, playing for the All Blacks, right? So the first thing I would say is mental health is not prejudice. So rich, poor, black, white, whatever, it's not prejudice. But yes, I think that the pressure on someone who's got a relatively good life is enough. So if you add the social things on top of that, then that's not going to help. There's lots of studies that go around the world and they say some of the poorer people have some of the less mental health issues. There's no stats around that. But I think if mental health is not prejudice, whatever gets you there, you need to address, right? So I'm pretty sure that inequity and those could be a real factor. Yeah.
You touched on a few points there. I still probably wouldn't want to be locked up in a room with that Jack Nicholson character, and even though I try to be empathetic and understanding and reach out, every once in a while, my wife goes that little bit further, and it kind of brings inside me that sense that actually you're not as caring as you really think you are. I'll give you an example. The other day we went for coffee. She disappeared. She eventually comes back. I realized that it was going to be a coffee for two, which was $12. It was a coffee for 14 because there's a whole lot of homeless people around the corner and all of them got coffee. Okay. It's great that it was on my card, but one of those things, I wouldn't have thought of doing that, but she's that sort, and it's how do you keep the soft heart, John?
I think giving is a really important part of your mental health. So, if you think about the 6 pillars, and you can download our Groov app. So the 6 pillars of keeping yourself well, giving is a really important side of it. But also, you don't have to force yourself not to be you, right? Yeah. And I think that's beautiful of your wife. And, if it comes into your mind and you want to do that, that's beautiful. But we are all different individuals. And I think that's really, really important to understand that, hey, that's beautiful, and I'm glad you paid, so you contributed to that, Sean, and next time I'm down your way, I'll make sure that I put it on your card. That'll be good.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, but look, I think, one of the things that's important is you don't have to be something that you're not. I think being kind, and we probably heard this a lot, right? I'm just organizing my thing for you. So the most important thing for me is to really understand you and then make sure that you look after you, and then giving will be really, really good for your mental health. I promise you. What your giving might be is up to you. You know, might be giving to the dog shelter. It might be whatever it is. And I just think that's a really important part of mental health, and it's a really, really important part of actually how you stay well. So giving, but also giving to yourself is important. Taking time for you, making space. You know, I'll often talk about my beautiful mum who passed away 4 years ago now. And, you know, we had she was a Catholic, and so the coffin was pretty important for her. And so we used to have all these funny conversations about coffins, you know, and that generation always wants to, you know, they always want to pay for their own funeral, right? I go, it's all right, Mum, I'll hook you up. You're all good. But anyway, I remember being at a funeral, and she would have loved the coffin, and she had a beautiful rosary beads on top. But afterwards, everyone said to me, you know, we loved your mum. And I said, I love my mum too. Why do you love my mum? And they all said, because she gave us time. Right? And when she was talking to us, it's as if we're the only people in this world. And everyone said that. And I remember promising myself on that day that I would take a leaf out of my mum's book. And what is the world taking away from us? Time, right? So you need to give yourself time, and you need to give other people time who you care about, people that matter to you, or people who don't matter to you, but you want to give them time anyway. You know, what's one of the hardest things to get now? Volunteers. You know, everyone's incredibly busy. It's no one's fault, but people just don't have time. And that's this modern world. And so, you know, doing the full circle, you know, it's really, really important. So you know, the 6 pillars for me, which I've turned into what I call a daily mental health plan. And so I'll just show you them for you. So I make a coffee. I have a shower in the morning. I walk slow. I read, cook, or surf. I've taken up the guitar as well. I do something physical. I'm really grateful, right? I laugh. And if you come over here, is that backwards for you guys? It's backwards for me. I hope it's not. No, backwards.
It's perfect.
I tell someone that I love them every day. Or tell the people that I love them every day. So basically, if you flick that back into science, right, that is what we call at Groov, which are the 6 pillars, which they say if you do this on a daily basis, then you'll be better. So that's move, chill, enjoy, do, celebrate, and connect, right? So what your wife did the other day was she gave, right? But she also connected with people. And those things are very good for you. So if you do those in your day, then you're going to feel a bit better about yourself, which is all part of it.
Cool. Hey, I think that we've just got an audience largely made up of people in the caring industry here, John. And Paul asked us, you know, everyone's talking about burnout. You know, what actually is it? What does it look like? And how do you reckon we address it?
Yeah, well, we've got some. Once again, download the app. So it's got a whole lot of articles about burnout. So I think burnout for me, and I've been burnt out a bit. I was actually burnt out before I went back to Italy. So I can tell you burnout is just doing too much, not enough time, running from one thing to the next, never really stopping. So I think burnout, how I recognize burnout was, for me, I don't want to go to work, so I get really agitated. I get pissed off thinking that everyone wants a piece of my time. My sleep starts to suffer, and my sharks come back, right? So I start doubting myself and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's if you go to your triple battery, if you go to your awareness, if you start looking at yourself and you're starting to feel some of those things, you know, don't like your workmates anymore, you know, or they're just annoying you all the time, or you don't feel like going to work, or, you know, and that's pretty much the world at the moment, right? And it's no one's fault. It's just that COVID has been incredibly taxing on us mentally. So, you know, the most important thing is everyone thinks a holiday can help, and it certainly helped me, but it's not always the solution. So, I mean, what we talk about, in you know, at Groov, it's really important to take short breaks. It's really important to take your breaks for yourself. Really important to put boundaries around your work life. Okay. You know, I love all of you. If you're in the healthcare industry, you're beautiful people and you help people, and that's often you give more to others than you'll give to yourself. And I think that's probably one of your traits, which is a beautiful trait. But you also need to put boundaries around that and make sure that you are protecting yourself as well. It's like getting on the aircraft, right? What do they say to you when the oxygen tank comes down? You know, if you've got someone next to you, put that on. Put them on first, put yours on first, and then put theirs on, right? So really, really interesting in your industry because you have that as a nature. Look after yourself physically, so take time to walk or get out in fresh air and just get some time. Be kind to yourself because you're being kind to everyone else, but be kind to yourself. And you know that's so here we go. I often ask this question: what is love? Wow, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's a bit heavy, JK." And I say, "Well, what is it?" Right? And I'll get 20 different answers, right? But a really wise priest, actually, in Italy, who'd never been married, actually said to me once, JK, it's a verb. It's a doing word. Wow. That changed my life a wee bit. But so is being kind. So when you hear the saying, be kind, right? You think, the hell is that? Well, it's a verb. Write down underneath it what being kind to you is. Is it taking some time to read your book? Is it a scone with jam and cream once a week? Is it whatever? But it's a doing word, okay? So when you'll know what being kind to yourself is. You just won't be doing it if you're too busy. So I think those things are really important. If you can do those, then I think you can actually start looking after yourself on a daily basis and then have a daily mental health plan. You know, stress and anxiety, people, does mount up, right? You've got to flush it out every day. You've got to get rid of it every day. That's what I do, because otherwise you get to the weekend and you've got a headache when you want to go and do something you enjoy. Or I always talk about this. Remember when you just got out of school, you know, you've just started your first job and along come the Christmas holidays, right? By the time you get to the car park, you're on holiday. By the time you get in the car, you've forgotten all that shit behind you, man. You're on holiday. And then by the time Christmas comes along, which is 4 days later, you feel like you've been away a week. And then you go away for 3 weeks and it feels like 3 months. You go back to where you feel great, right? Remember the last holiday you had? You know, you don't know how to disconnect from this thing. You take a whole lot of worries with you. You don't know whether you should reply to your email. You're feeling guilty about all these sorts of things. And that's just our modern world. So it's really important. You have a daily mental health plan and you're aware and acknowledge if you might be getting burnt out, and then do some of those B's that I told you about.
Hey, John, how many caring professionals are actually telling people to you or referring people to Groov?
I don't know. I know that, you know, we've given Groov away free to the country, and we've had amazing results. Over 150,000 people have downloaded it. We've also done a hell of a lot of research that if you do use it, if you're in the mild category, then it will give you some relief. But, you know, our goal is to make it a preventative tool, give the people the information and the tools that they need. You know, and health professionals, man, you guys got the hardest job in the world, man. Like, you know, don't underestimate how hard your world is. And I think, you know, I played for the All Blacks, right? And everyone goes, oh, how is that? I said, it's really tough every day because everyone around me wanted to be world's best. So the competition and the standard of training was really, really hard. And then when they said, oh, but it must have been great playing, I said, yeah, but even the worst team in the world had their best game against you. So you could never relax, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about, you know, the health services, you guys have some of the hardest jobs in the world, right? A lot of the stuff that you're dealing with is traumatic to people's lives. And there you are giving a lot of yourself. I remember reading a great article one time about a hospital, and the CEO of the hospital had sort of turned this hospital around a wee bit. I don't know where I read the article, but and I don't know why it popped into my head, but I think it's probably an interesting story for this conversation, is that they said everybody who walks through that door is having possibly the worst day of their life.
Yeah.
Right, which I thought, wow, I never thought of it like that, you know. And yeah, maybe you know, someone goes in with a sprained ankle or whatever, but still, it's not their best day. And if you escalate that right through to, you know, really traumatic stuff or people doing treatment, then it's a pretty amazing environment to work in, and so burnout is probably not good in your industry, but probably pretty rife because you have all the signs that say that you should be.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if that made sense because I'm not a health expert. I'm not a health.
Oh no, hey, I think it made perfect sense to me, and I know that work of Montari and that least invasive treatment model that they're promoting, which is actually not rushing to diagnose, but instead actually taking, you know, the 3 cups of tea approach. Get to understand the person. They should be depressed if their wife's left them, the house has been foreclosed on, and the dog died this morning. If they're not, there's actually more to be concerned, really. So yeah, you know, we've got to build the grace period in there, and it's a very, very powerful tool. Sometimes we see people in a difficult space, right, or an elevated state. Hey, John, if we're referring somebody to the program, is there a better way to do it? Or just
yeah, so there's a couple of things that I firmly believe. I believe if we want to change the mental stats of the world, that needs to go through the workplace. So for me, the workplace is the greatest place to get to the community. We do not want the end users to pay, but it is a paid service. So if you want to contact us on groovnow.com, then we can show you the different ways to do things. And what we do is what we want to do is, you know, inspire the individual to have a daily mental health plan, but we also want to lift the leaders just to make this normal. We don't want the leaders to think they're psychiatrists or psychologists. We just want them to lead well-being in the workplace, right? And I sort of talk about performance care, right? Having a job and being good at your job and performing in your job is really good for your mental health. But then how do we care for people in the same way? And what's happened in the past, there have been 2 different conversations, the care conversation and the performance conversation. They're now one conversation because I believe unless you genuinely care for someone, then you're not going to get the performance out of them. And so lift the leaders to make sure that they're genuinely leading down the performance care pathway and then optimizing the environment. So but the app is also free, so you can download it and start using it straight away. And all our stuff we have an amazing clinical team, led by Dr. Fiona Crichton. So all the stuff that you read is scientifically tested and proven.
Cool. You have this as an adult program, right? So where does that actually cut in? Because you've also got Mighty, haven't you?
Yeah, so they're the 2 things that I did. So the Mighty, like I said, we facilitated for a year. Then we got the Auckland University to actually build a curriculum, and that curriculum was based on what we call a mana model, which is a Māori model, which is mana whānau, mana ukaipo, mana matuhake, mana tangatauru, and mana tū. So they're all things, but that's how we based it. And then what we did after that is we got the Auckland University to build it into curriculum. The other 2 things that we found out was that you don't want to put any pressure on your schools from a human resource point of view or a financial point of view. So we employ the coaches that then go in to the schools. And the other thing that was really important, need to be co-designed. So what might work up here in Tamaki Makaurau, you know, might not work down in Dunedin, might not work South Auckland, North Auckland, whatever. So the coach then co-designs that with the school, and then we upskill one of the teachers to then become a Mighty teacher. We're in 75 schools at the moment, and we'd like to be right across the 1,600 primary schools in New Zealand within the next 5 years, and I believe we'll get some change to our mental health stats within a decade.
Cool.
So that's for primary school, and we believe that if we teach our tamariki, they will start growing up with a mental health plan, rather than finding out that, shit, actually, when you taught me English, maths and science, but I don't really give a shit about that because I can't get out of bed. So, or I'm getting divorced, or I've lost my first job, or I've broken up with my first girlfriend, or I'm getting online bullied. So all those things we need to, give our kids the tools. So yeah, they're two different things. And I think, so when I said I'd failed, I realized that the two things are that, we need to make this part of the business world. It needs to be profitable, needs to be profitable for the business, needs to be profitable for the company, because that's what business will understand. On the other side, we need to make ourselves unemployed, right?
Yeah.
So if we start teaching our tamariki and they grow up with the tools they need to deal with the situations that this world is throwing at them, then I believe we'll go from one of the worst suicide rates in the developed world to one of the best, and that's our goal.
Cool. I think it's a pretty enviable goal, to be honest. I think it's stunning. We don't seem to have a lot of questions coming through. So, John,
I talk too much. Sorry.
No, you're not. No, they just put them up on the chat box. So if there's any more people either speak out
everybody away. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but what's next, John? What's the next thing?
I think Groov would like to reach 100 million people and save 100,000 lives. So that's, for me personally, what I'm really motivated about. I think for Mighty, one of our challenges is we're a foundation, so we raise money. So how do I make that sustainable in a way? We have the most charities in New Zealand, by the way. So all of you are not only great healthcare people, you are very, very generous. So well done. Thank you. New Zealanders are really, really generous, but how do I make it sustainable and also keep the ability to make it fast moving, fail fast, learn fast, move fast, because I think those things are fundamental in the modern world, and some things that I think just through no one's fault, governments struggle to do. And because they are elected for a short period of time, sometimes it's very difficult to do those things. So how do we do that? I'm just seeing a couple of questions, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself now, because I was feeling a bit stink that no one's...
No. So you want to? Shall I work through them, or you?
I can see them if you want to.
Okay. How can I help somebody who I think is depressed?
Yeah, that's a real hard one. I get that all the time. You need to keep stepping in. Try not to be the expert, because often our perception of it rubs against that person the wrong way. Try and walk with them. So try and give them as much help as they can around reaching out and getting help, although that's pretty difficult at the moment. The best way is to show some vulnerability yourself, because often people are scared to share because they are fearful that they are different or no one else feels like that, and I've been there. So I'd say they're my three things. Keep stepping in. It can be frustrating at times because the people that are depressed will push you away. The second thing is show some vulnerability. And the third thing, don't be an expert, but offer to, hold their hand on their journey. Is one of the greatest things. So I have a ruminating mind. I call my mind Bob the Monkey, right? So if you have a Bob the Monkey, so Bob the Monkey, my goal is to put him into his cage and give him a banana, right? So if I sit down and watch Netflix, if it's not interesting in 2 minutes, Bob the Monkey goes, yoo-hoo, and he's off, right? If I go to bed without doing a series of things, Bob the Monkey's going, yoo-hoo, you've laid down, now I'm really going to annoy you. So I think a Bob the Monkey, especially if you're stressed, speeds up. So there's, and it's in my daily mental health plan. So I always remember a psychiatrist telling me, She said, "You've got a ruminating mind." I went, "Whoa, so that's pretty scary." She said, "No, it's not that scary. A lot of people got it. You've just got to learn how to deal with it." And so I talk about your computer. So, you know, when your computer craps out, what do? Turn it on and you turn it off again.
Yep.
Right? So our minds are no different. So what I do for Bob, my monkey, is I've got to distract him so that he goes into his cage and has a banana and normally stops annoying me. The three things that I do on a daily basis are I read a book, which Bob hates, so he goes into his cage and has a banana, and I normally do that before I go to sleep, which means he goes to sleep and then I go to sleep. The other thing I do is cook, because Bob hates cooking, goes into his cage and has a banana. And guess what? You can also do this for your mental health. 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So guess who else loves me cooking? Yep, you guessed it, people. My wife. And so I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. She thinks I'm pretty cool, which is not that often, but also Bob the monkey doesn't like it. The other thing I did during COVID is I took up the guitar. Sounds like I'm killing a cat. In fact, not even the dog stays, right? But Bob the monkey hates and goes into his cage. So the best thing you can do with a ruminating mind is to distract it. You know, I don't know if any of you guys had an Auntie Betty, but I had an Auntie Betty. She had blue rinse hair, and she was amazing. Smoked a packet of cigarettes a day along with my mum. Didn't mind a sherry either, but she used to knit, tick, 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 right? I think, shit, drive us nuts. But actually, knitting is really good for a ruminating mind.
Yeah.
Okay, or doing Lego, or doing puzzles, or doing whatever. But really, the best way I know is those 3 for me. But try stuff that unplugs or puts that monkey in his cage would be my answer.
Cool. Hey, got somebody. A gal asked, do we include MHAW health models in your programs?
Yeah, totally. So I'm doing a lot of work on Indigenous and especially Maori past. So Te Whare Tapa Whā is an amazing model. And if you look at it and then add the science and all the modern world to it, it is actually really, really sound. So, you know, if you look at Māoridom and look at some of the things we've got to think about for our for our environment, a lot of the things that Indigenous and especially Māori used to do was that, you know, conservation, looking after their food sources, but also mental health. So yeah, the Te Whare Tapa Whā is a recent model. So, but yeah, if you could implement that, it's the same as the 6 pillars.
Cool.
So I think we can learn so much from so many different cultures, you know.
One of the things, obviously, people are employees as well as other facts in their lives, and how do they influence their leaders and their company leaders and stuff to take notice of staff well-being? Because that's obviously one of your focuses as well.
Yeah, look, it's the future. So I firmly believe this: CEOs or business leaders that don't get on this performance care wagon, they're going to be dead in 5 years' time, because you guys deserve it, right? You guys deserve genuine care in the workplace, and then the workplace deserves performance. You know, it's a beautiful, happy marriage, but when that gets out of sync, it's not nice. So my advice is to tell your boss, we want to go down this pathway. We want to have amazing care, and that's going to help our performance, and they'll get that, right? I think one of the philosophies that I think we need to start understanding and caring about is, you know, the world is a funny place. Do we care more about our shareholders than our people or our public? You know, and we need to keep asking those questions of the world, because I think, you know, we talked about it before about the difference between rich and poor. You know, one of the saddest days I had as a New Zealander was realizing how much poverty there is in our country, because I just didn't know. So yeah, I think it's really, really important that as a workplace you get together and say, look, we want to do this because we think it's going to help everyone, would be my advice. And we're really, really happy to help out at Groov as well. So get in touch.
Cool.
Just tell it, if you want to come online, just tell them that you've been talking to me, and they'll come and talk to me, and I'll tell them what we spoke about, and we'll
Great.
we'll get into it for you. But that's our goal, you know. And there's other companies that do this stuff as well. But for me, it's really, really important that the future has genuine care in the workplace.
Yeah, totally. Hey, I've got a good friend of mine, a school principal, high school, and they're still struggling to get students get back into education. The COVID thing really just, it really knackered some people's commitment to school, and they were good students, some of these people beforehand, but they just don't turn up. And is this a program that would be suitable for schools, for high schools?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting. I don't know if any of you read the book Quiet. It's a really amazing book if you want to read it, because it really helped me. So I'm an introvert that likes being an extrovert, right? But I need to make sure that I get my energy back. So, for example, if I explain that, go out, love doing stuff like this, have a good day at work, and then I get home and my wife says, "How are you?" No, I don't reply. My kids want to talk to me and I'm dead, right? Because I've given all this energy and I need to replenish it, right? I didn't know about that. But also during COVID, my introvert came out. Oh, JK, this is good. You don't have to have any energy to go out the house. You don't have to have any energy to meet people. You don't have to bring any energy to your day, man. This is pretty cool. So I started getting more introverted. And I was scared when I went back outside. I wasn't scared of COVID. I was scared of the energy that I had to find and whether I had changed.
Yeah.
So if you put all introverts and extroverts out there, so the extrovert hated being at home, right? Let me out. I want to see people because they get energy.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the kids that have probably a little bit of introversion in them, but extroversion is good. We all need that in life, right? We need that social connection. We need to go out, be part of the world. That you had forced on you by going to school is actually really good for you. But then once COVID comes along, you get back, you start getting into it. Hey, and I'm not, this is just all, like, I'm a butcher. Don't take this as science or anything. Do some more research rather than talking it. We call them JK facts, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, when I'm talking to schools, that's what's happened. A lot of these kids are struggling to get that energy back out and that confidence back up to go back out there, which is hard, right? So we have to face the anxiety and we have to face the personality of that person,
Hey, and I can really relate to your story about being an introvert. I've got a stepson, and he's a lovely young man, but he's well on the Asperger's part of the spectrum. And we were sitting down one night having a barbecue as COVID was drawing to a close and New Zealand was reopening. And I said, "So how have you found COVID?" And he said, "It's the best thing." And everyone else in the family is kind of looking around thinking, "Are you for real?" But for some people that was his natural place, so he found it quite
you think about it as well. I want to take you all back to your 13-year-old self, and if someone said you don't have to go to school, what would you say? Like, I would have been all over it like a rash, man. Don't have to go to school, yoo-hoo. You're right. But how many times did I have to force myself to go to school, and I ended up having a good day, or whatever. It's just life. But sometimes, COVID has really changed those dynamics.
Yeah.
And then we're all concerned, and it's not hard. I don't know what the answers are either, people.
Yeah.
But we certainly need to try and get people back.
Yeah, totally. And hey, I think talking about these sort of things in an open way is part of the answer. I saw Sana made a comment post-COVID. I found I had moral fatigue. I think I had that too, Sana. I was just over it, but kind of tired.
But that's okay, man. That's okay. I think sometimes, one of the things that I learned during my, during my illness was, it's okay. It's okay. Like I had one of the other sharks I didn't write down was, I want to be liked shark, right? So I spent so much energy wanting to be liked, and it takes energy, right? And so often, you're trying to be liked, or you're trying to help people all the time, and it gets tiring. And you just need to take some time for you, like I mentioned before. But it's okay. You're not the devil. You're not someone bad. It's okay to feel like that. And you just need to give yourself a little bit of time. What I say is, I am not my emotions. I am my values, right? I am not my emotions, I'm my values. So my values will always be there. And it might be nice for you to write them down and just reinforce them with yourself. Because it's okay to be pissed off. It's okay to think people are dicks. It's okay to think that, I'm sick of being nice to people because they piss me off. That's okay, right? Because if you've got good morals and good values, they will come back when you're a little less tired, or a little less grumpy, or a little less, whatever you are. So I think, it's really, really important to just make peace with yourself.
That's a great statement there, John. I really appreciate that. Hey, we're coming to the end of it. John, is there anything you want to say as a parting gift?
Yeah, look, I think that we are the people we've been waiting for. Right? We are the people we've been waiting for. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I think that I realize that if I want to keep working, the workload will keep coming. If I want to work, and I think there's a workload went from 32 hours, 24/7, came exhausted, work counseling, right? Like, the work's not stopping. There is no work-life balance. There is no stop to work. If anyone's got an empty inbox, I need to know them, because I haven't met someone for a long, long time, right? So a lot of those things, I mean, have you heard lately that people are getting ghosted? That means you don't get someone replying to you because they probably really like you, but got 250 million emails and they can't get around to it, right? So you've got to take control. The greatest thing we can learn moving forward is to have a daily mental health plan. So start now. Look at it and then do dot. Don't try and do 20 things. Remember when you hadn't been to the gym, for 2 years, and you go to the gym, have a massive workout, then you can't even sit on the toilet for 3 weeks because you've gone too hard too early, and then you never go back, right? Don't want that. Start with one thing, dot. Make it really easy, put it in your day, and then once you've done dot, do that. Do another thing and start habit stacking. But make sure they're for you, about you, and they give you that energy you need to face this modern world.
Hey, powerful stuff. Thanks very much, John. I've really appreciated talking. For everyone else, go check out Groov, which is GROOVNOW.com, Groov Now, and check out the program, download it, give it a crack. I use it. I find it is very, I guess, it forces me to sit back and think. And that doesn't do me any harm. That 5-minute break, it actually always makes me better. And I really thank you for that, John. You have a lovely day. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful
one last thing before I go. Turn on the notifications, because then I will message you, and that will help your habitual change.
Yeah, totally.
You don't have to, of course. You don't want me annoying you, but anyway, if you want to, I'll text you.
Yeah, and there's always coffee for you in Napier here, John, so don't you worry about it.
There's also other things in Napier I really like as well, Sean.
Yeah.
So could be down.
Okay, I'll be messaging you. Take care, everyone.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Thank you so much.